Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday and I think it's the 8th of August, and welcome to Saba's Way of Life. Today is a garden update because we are in August and it is harvest season now, and the kind of ball game changes in the garden now, whereby you're thinking, or certainly I'm thinking, of first of all harvesting everything that I've got, because so many people make the mistake of growing all this stuff and then it overgrows and it ripens. I've done this so many times, and then it's unedible. It goes, sometimes things go bitter when they start to flower and so on. So you must harvest at the right time and also understand how to store. And I've learnt the hard way here. We can look on Google or wherever in books, and on YouTube, but you've got to learn from experience. So and also I'm going to just show you the wonderful bottle gourd that I have now displayed in the greenhouse and is doing very well, and I'll explain why I use that word displayed. You'll see when I take you in there. So I'll just go through the whole garden, show you what's happening, and also finally preparing for winter gardening. I've never done that before, but I'm going to do it this year and really think about the things that I can put in, that I can overwinter in the garden outside, and that will appreciate it. Things like garlic, for example, but other things also, certain greens. I think there are mustard greens that quite like to be sown at this time of year and produce some nice green, flavoursome leaves during the winter. But let's go into the greenhouse first. This is the most wonderful thing that I want to show you. Look at this. Can you see this? If I take you inside, turn this around, you've got the bottle gourd here. I'm just going to, right, this is the bottle gourd that I sowed earlier on in the year. It's grown. I've got it in 3 pots. I repotted a couple of them yesterday into bigger pots. That was difficult to do. And what I've done, as I've watched them grow, and of course watched and observed other videos, I understand these leaves like to be spread. They like air in between, and I've been careful to monitor the amount of leaves and then the production of the fruit. Now you can see here is one bottle gourd. They grow huge, by the way. I'm going to have something to support them because they're really big. So I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. So there's one here, and there are a couple more you can see here. There's one here. Now this is a female one because you've got the flower and the fruit behind it, the swelling, which turns into the fruit. This is a male flower because there's no fruit behind it. Now, because I'm in the greenhouse and I don't get an abundance of bees and things in here to pollinate, this needs to be pollinated, you see, for the fruit to grow. So what I do is I'll take a male flower off. And it's funny that all the male flowers seem to come out first in preparation, and then the female flowers follow. So I will take this male flower off. I'll take this top layer off to reveal the inside, and I can't remember the name of that. And then when this female flower opens, I will carefully, I'll do it on the same day, pop the inside of that into the female flower to pollinate it. Normally, bees and insects would do that kind of thing, the bees in particular, but that is unlikely to happen, so I've got to give it a helping hand. This one here that's growing, the flower's kind of dying off, I've already done that with a male flower, so I've already pollinated it. And if I hadn't, quite often the fruit would shrivel up and fall off, but this shouldn't. Hopefully it should swell and turn into a beautiful bottle gourd fruit. So there's flowers coming everywhere in different parts. There's one coming here. This is a male flower. There's 3 different plants. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's working very well. Right? There's 3 or 4 tomato plants in here, and they haven't done as well as the ones outside. And I think that's because if you look up here, Let me just show you. There's a canopy on this tree which has grown right above the greenhouse and it's stopping the sun. So I'm going to have to get the loppers out, get my brother over, and to lop those high branches. Sorry, let me talk to you like this. And to lop those high branches off early spring next year so I don't make the same mistake. Having said that, I've got some heirloom green slicing tomatoes, and they do look pretty amazing. Look at them! Have you ever seen tomatoes like this? Now they're probably going to go yellow. I've got a couple outside I'm going to show you in the front which faces south, yellow, but they are these are heirloom heritage tomatoes, and I'm going to keep the seeds of these because they are very valuable, not genetically modified, grown by me, organically grown. They're going to be so nutritious. You may remember I explained to you how red tomatoes in particular are a very selfish tomato. Reading Rudolf Steiner, he says the two most selfish fruit and vegetable is potato and tomato, because when they're growing they only have themselves in mind, and therefore they can grow in very raw manure, whereas other plants and fruit and vegetables rely on one another in some form or another. There's some form of synergy. And cancer, as I've actually explained in quite a few videos, I did a kind of series of them, cancer is a very selfish disease. It's a disease of the ego, the egoic mind, which is why they say don't eat. When I say they, this is why people like Steiner, who understands the relationship between human beings and plants and nature, says the two things not to eat, the two food things not to eat are tomatoes, red tomatoes in particular, and potatoes. Of course, tomatoes change their nature when you cook them. Probably potatoes do too, but I don't know enough about that. Okay, so let's go into the garden. I want to show you the plum tree. Right, see, there is an abundance of plums on this tree and they're starting to turn. There's only one problem, that because the weather has been so wet and humid and then very, very sunny, they've got this awful brown kind of fungus that hits the tomato before it ripens. So half of it ripens and then it gets this fungal spores on top, and I've had to remove them, otherwise it will infect the entire plant. I've also chopped lots of leaves off in different areas just so that there's plenty air circulating. See, if you look at this one, I'm a bit worried because it's starting to go purple, but it's just doing it on one side. And I'm here as well, I can see the very beginning of rot. You can't see it there, maybe you can. Yeah, I've got to take it off. Let me just, can you see it? This is the fungal spores. It's such a shame because it may infect all the plums, and if it does, that's the end of that crop. And I'm going to throw this in the bin because these spores can spread, but you've got to get them off as soon as you see them. So that's what I'm doing. So last year I had these awful kind of bugs, caterpillars or whatever they were, inside the plums, and they had got in there before the fruit had formed. When the flowers were there, the moths had laid on them or climbed up or something, and they'd got in, and then the fruit formed around it. And I did spray it this year, but now because of the weather, the fungus has got them. So, you know, this is part of nature. This is something we've got to live with, and this is actually, all these things help us learn and grow wiser and understand how nature works. And some things we just cannot control, but we just do the best we can with the tools we've got and the environment, the fake environment that we're living in every way, shape and form. Right. Cucumbers. This cucumber plant, this is a heritage cucumber plant. If You can see it here. There's plenty of flowers forming here. I may have to fertilise this as well. I'm just trying to see if there is an actual cucumber somewhere. I did see one a couple of days ago and I can't find it to show you, but I'll probably have to do the same thing because there's quite a lot, as you can see, beautiful yellow flowers appearing. Here you go. Here's one cucumber, and I don't think that's going to work because the flower looks like it's dying and I haven't fertilised it. Oh, sorry, pollinated it, not fertilised it. And I should have done that. So hopefully a bee has, but I'll just be aware of the rest that are coming out. Look at this wonderful cauliflower here coming up. So nice. So really it is a case of harvesting. Look. This curly leaf kale, these are so expensive in the shops. And what I'm going to do is take off these leaves on the next leaf day. Today's a fruit day. Chop it up and I'm going to freeze it. And I can use it in by steaming it or something like that. These are great cold in salads when they're massaged with olive oil. But, you know, you can't do that once you've frozen it. So I'll just use it in cooking in other ways. I do want to show you this. Just look at this. This is my little wildlife patch. It's not really a garden, but just look at how tall these wildflowers have grown and how absolutely beautiful they look. And when the weather's a little bit better, they attract the bees. Bees normally come around 4:35 and in the evening, or very early in the morning. I don't normally see them during the day in the heat. There's a cosmos here, which is about to bloom into this beautiful purple flower. It's just stunning. Different colours are coming out. We've had some poppies, some red poppies. There's one that's just fallen down there. But really, I also want to show you this fig tree. I had pruned it so hard earlier this season, and I wasn't expecting it to give me any fruit. But on all the new branches, if you look here, you can see there's baby fig fruit. Now, whether or not they ripen and do well, I don't know, because how much sun do we have now in August? But nonetheless, they're there. I wasn't expecting it, and there's quite a few. When you look carefully, I was shocked to see so many young baby fruit coming out. There's another one here. See? Fig tree in the UK, who would have thought? Lots of salad leaves. I'm eating these salad leaves all the time. This one in particular is lovely. Piece of steak and salad with wonderful French dressing or just olive oil and salt. Delicious. Bit of garlic. Simple. Flowers are still doing really well. Look at the thyme. Now I've got so much thyme and so much flat leaf parsley. It's ridiculous. And look at this rosemary. But the parsley and the thyme I grew from seed. And I failed last year and it's worked this year, and I'm going to cut all these stalks off and I'm going to dry them. So I've got dried thyme. Parsley, I can do exactly the same, although I am using parsley. It's lovely with pasta. I don't eat a lot of pasta, but sometimes I do. I make a pepper pasta just with black pepper, very thin pasta, olive oil, and then I put some parsley on top, or even in a tomato sauce. It's nice. Here, the mint is doing very well, the Moroccan mint. And back here, I've been chopping all this coriander. I know it's fallen down, but that's because I've been chopping and eating it and putting it into curries. Just take you out into the driveway, which is full of growing food. I've got to show you this. Just look at the sweet corn. Look how tall it's grown. It is now about 6 foot, I would say. first time I'm grown sweet corn. There's two different types. This type hasn't grown so fast, it's not doing so well, and this other type, these are dark green leaves, are doing really well. You can see here these tassels have started to come out, and from my memory and understanding, the actual sweet corn, the cob, will form around the tassels. And at the moment they're fresh and pinkish, bright green and pink, but once the fruit forms, these will go brown. I think it's going to form here. So I'm going to keep an eye, and from memory again, I think each plant will give about two cobs. We shall see. I want to show you these tomatoes. So these had potatoes in, if you remember. Once the potatoes were out, I've harvested them and stored the potatoes. I put the tomatoes into the same soil because I had so many extra tomato plants and they're all doing well. This is a tomato plant that my sister-in-law gave me. She's Italian and she bought these. I think she got them from Italy. I don't know. I don't know where she got these tomato plants from, but look at the colour. These are purple. Aren't they amazing? Now she had 2 or 3 plants, 2 died. This is the one that survived. So I'm really going to look after it and collect the seeds as well. It's wonderful. Now the next thing I want to show you are these onions. Look at the size of these onions. So here's my hand and look at the size. They're huge. So you can see you can grow onions. These started off in a small tray and then I transplanted them. If those of you who've watched all the videos will see the journey to growing all of this. And I put these and separated them, thinned them out into pots. They need space, so there's only 4 in here. And there's 5 in here, but you can, no, 4 in here, a little bit smaller. And in this pot, this is leeks. Now you can go to these shops, you'll find these leeks are really big and fat, but actually garden leeks are not. They're quite slim, and I will chop these up and put them in the freezer for chicken and leek soup over the winter. The other thing I love with leeks is when you cook a roast or something, cabbage, like a green pointed cabbage, and chopped leeks, just sautéed in garlic and butter and seasoning, is fantastic. And you don't boil it, you just saute it and it softens and the taste is amazing. So remember that: pointed cabbage, leeks, garlic, fresh garlic chopped up, bit of butter, ghee. I use butter, I like butter, but add a little bit of oil or ghee to that. Make sure it's a proper oil, a good quality one, or ghee, because butter can burn. And then saute the chopped up leeks and cabbage, and it tastes delicious. It just takes 5 minutes. So that is what I wanted to share with you in the garden. I've got an itch in my nose and it's so rude, I'm so sorry. Anyway, what I'm going to do this Thursday is I'm going to shoot a video and I'm going to talk about my experience with cults. And I'm going to explain before I do what a cult is. There are all sorts of definitions, and I'm going to explain what my experience has been, which has been not a very pleasant experience, certainly the latter part of it. And I have to share this because when we have a good experience with a company or an individual, we share it. When we have a bad experience, suddenly we go silent. We mustn't. This is the whole issue that we have in society today, that people don't speak up because they're in fear all the time. Get the fear out. If something needs to be spoken up to help others change the way they think, make the right choices and not make the same mistakes, you must speak up. And I will be talking about the company Truth Freedom Health, which is led by Dr. Shiva Ayudurai. I will talk about the positives and I will talk about the negatives, and there are a lot of very concerning negatives in my opinion. So tune in, watch that video on Thursday, which I'm going to put out. It's not going to be one, there are going to be several videos, because I've been involved in learning from different companies throughout the last 2, 3, 4 years, and bar 2 of them, they're all cultish, but I will explain what that means. That's key, because once you understand what that means and define what I mean point by cultish behaviour, which can be quite abusive, then the boxes can be ticked and I can explain my experience. And then you can then make choices and decisions based on that in anything you go into. You know, we're in a in a world now where we've got to understand that it's changing. We're talking about paradigm shift. It's really key you understand this. First of all, the whole way of thinking is changing when we understand who we are. You will not think from a mechanical state of mind. The mechanical state of mind will be your slave. Your master is your connection to source. I've explained this in many other videos. It's your wiring that we have through the antennae in the brain to a frequency which is the mind behind the universe, and that source, you call it God. Whereas 99%, okay, maybe not exactly 99, maybe more, of people are not connected to that source. They don't even know it exists. We humans are very powerful, and they are connected to a very, they call it third dimensional, but it's a very low frequency, which is emulating source, which is run by these elites through all the technology that they use. And it's all by design, because it is there to distract us. And I was actually going to say is that the whole thinking is not geared around, is this right or that right? Should I do that or this? What about Trump versus Kennedy versus Biden? It's not about that. It's not about any of that. It's not about any. It's about the ability to step back and observe. And I would say it's like going in between. You observe. Nothing is right or wrong. Just observe. And from that place, make your choices. But when you learn to observe and see the world from a high vantage point, you will see not only that it's a theatre, and everything's a theatre. Even those people that are coming in this system to say, I'll talk about that on Thursday, to say, I will take you to freedom. That's still a choice to make, to take a side. We're out of that place now, taking a side. If you're asking what we do, we go within. We look inside ourselves to who we are and connect to source, that universal mind of which others are connected to, and more each day, and make our choices from that place. Because it won't be living in this existence. You'll realise that for yourself when you start to really understand who you are. And you will not be relying on an external source or bowing your head. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. What shall I do, sir? And you won't be open to abuse. You won't be misled by somebody who has fancy qualifications. In fact, be quite the opposite. Because the understanding that quite often, not always, again, not always, but quite often, those who've spent their entire life in the mainstream system studying can only think that way. The ability is to think the other way, and that's where a really higher form of intelligence and awareness comes in. You'll find that those people who spend a lot of time in nature have that, and especially farmers or those that live on the land, or look at all our ancestral cultures who were so aware and so spiritually aware. There was no technology there. They were living off the land, on the land, with nature, with the sun and the moon and the stars. We all know how these indigenous people of these lands were so aware, so able to see things metaphorically that we can't, because we've forgotten how to. It's closed off. Able to, they had premonitions. They could telepathy. Telepathy is normal for those humans who are connected to the right frequency. So those things I will talk about as well over time. I've already talked about quite a lot in previous videos. If you are to watch all of them in sequence, it will help give you an understanding of how I think and also how to think, because in my opinion, it's a very powerful way to live. Why am I saying that? Is it because I read a book? No. It's because I live that way every day. I don't just talk about it. There's a lot of people that talk, blah, 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 shut up. Very few that actually live it. And quite often, those individuals don't need to speak too much or too often or be on the device all the time. Look at how people live and what they do rather than what they say, and look at how they say things. Is their method of communication affecting you? If you hear somebody constantly putting other people down, swearing every 5 minutes, constantly, and justifying and validating it, but you realise inside that just doesn't, your heart clenches up. Is it right? No. Even if your mind somehow poisons itself into thinking it is, or you're poisoned into thinking that's the way to be, but your either your connection to source immediately will you'll walk away from it. Then your intuition will kick in after that. If you're not connected for some reason, it's very hard to be connected to that source when you're in such a third dimensional, engaged in a third dimensional source of knowledge or information coming in. It's usually not knowledge. It's very hard. So your inner voice would step in. But if it's not making you feel good, get out and trust it. No third party knows better than you do when you are really vibrating at a high positive frequency. They don't. Stop looking at third parties externally for answers for anything. Look within, and that is true power. Get into your garden, cook, clean your house, do all of these things that are present and these are meaningful. Go and see your family. If you've got elderly parents, look after them. Look after them before doing some other activity or activism. It's all bullshit. Focus on the important things: community, love for one another, and doing things that matter, which is gaining skills like this that matter for the land. That is where we're heading with the demise and the absolute collapse of global society. Wake up. Learn to step back and observe play. And do this for a period of time before you take the right action and make the right choices, which are then going to be from the right frequency. It's always the right thing to do. Have a lovely day.